Hello and welcome tonight. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo says Murtala Mohammed's greatest achievement is grooming a successor who sustained his ideals, warning Africa will struggle without leaders building institutions and successors. Members of the National Union of Food, Beverage and Tobacco Employees protest at NAFDAC's Lagos office, claiming the agency ignored a federal directive while NAFDAC insists that the ban on small alcohol products continues. Senate threatens to block 2026 Accountant General budget over poor funding releases to MDAs and the persistent failure to pay contractors for projects already executed across the Federation. And U.S. President Donald Trump reverses a major Obama-era climate rule that forms the basis for federal efforts to limit greenhouse gas emissions.
On business news, NNPC Limited remits 14.706 trillion naira to the federal government for the 2025 fiscal year, marking its highest annual contribution on record as it strengthens the nation's core financial revenue.
On sports news tonight, Nigeria has been drawn to face Morocco in the Davis Cup World Group 2 tie scheduled for September, 4 days after securing promotion.
And from the nation's capital, FCT minister says Abuja's new bus taxi terminal set to launch after Federal Executive Council approves public-private partnership deal.
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo says the greatest achievement of former military head of state General Murtala Mohammed is that he created a successor who could continue with his ideals, a feat he and other leaders after him failed to achieve. He was speaking at the Murtala Mohammed International Lecture and Leadership Conference themed Has Africa Come of Age?, organized by the Murtala Mohammed Foundation to mark the 50th memorial of the former military leader in Abuja. The former president said Africa will continue to struggle to come of age unless leaders deliberately build institutions and groom successors capable of sustaining policies after they leave office. Our correspondent Victoria Longjohn reports.
The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. George Akume, former Presidents Olusegun Obasanjo and Goodluck Jonathan, former leaders from Ghana and Malawi, amongst other dignitaries, are gathered here to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the assassination of the former head of state, General Murtala Mohammed.
Within 6 months, he gave his country a new federal capital.
50 years after his demise and his defining Africa Has Come of Age address at the OAU Summit in Addis Ababa, this conference seeks to revisit the essence of African sovereignty and principled leadership in a rapidly changing world.
We are politically independent, yet we're still negotiating economic dependence. We are rich in talent and resources, yet still confronting inequality and fragility. The question before us, what does coming of age mean in 2026?
The former president of the...
Recounting the events that shaped the year 1975, former President Olusegun Obasanjo hailed the exemplary leadership qualities of the late head of state, particularly his achievement in creating a successor.
The greatest achievement of Murtala was that he created a successor that could go on after him. And the failure of all leaders after Murtala, including myself, is that we have not been able to create successors who could go on after all.
The keynote address, aptly delivered by former Vice President Professor Yemi Osibanjo, was hinged on leadership values and Africa's maturity in a shifting global order.
If coming of age means perfection, then no continent qualifies. If it means the absence of struggle or the absence of problems, then history itself has not come of age. But if coming of age means agency, if it means self-awareness, if it means confidence of purpose and the capacity to shape one's destiny, then Africa is no longer emerging. It is in its moment.
Other speakers highlighted regional cooperation and the need for strengthening democratic institutions for effective leadership. Former President Goodluck Jonathan also makes a case for a seat at the table for young Nigerians.
The person we are celebrating today was the head of state at the age of 38. Obasanjo, when he took over from Murtala Mohammed, was I think 38 or so. And I remember when I look across, I saw the youth corpus, which is the legacy of General Yakubu Gowon, that became the head of state at the age of 32. So why do we begin to think that you must be in your hundreds before you can rule the country?
In response, the secretary to the government of the Federation, who represented President Bola Tinubu at the event, says leadership has nothing to do with physical age.
Leadership has nothing to do with physical age, but the age of your ideas. Yes, we respect our young people.
50 years after the bold assertion of General Murtala Mohammed that Africa has indeed come of age remains a powerful rallying cry. Stakeholders here believe the question is no longer historical, but a challenge to today's generation of African leaders. From Abuja, Victoria Longchon, Channels Television News.
The Court of Appeal, Abuja, has adjourned indefinitely to deliver judgment in a total of 9 appeals brought before it by both the Turaki-led group of the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, and the Wike-led group over the judgments of the trial court stopping the November the 15th and 16th National Convention of the party held in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. The 3-member panel of justices adjourned for judgment in the 9 appeals to a date that would be communicated to the parties after adoption of all written processes filed in the matter. While adopting the appellant's brief of arguments, counsel to the Turaki-led group, Chris Uche, told the court that the appeal is against the October 31st, 2025 judgment delivered by Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court, Abuja. According to him, the said judgment was delivered out of jurisdiction by the court and urged the appellate court to dismiss what he called a misconceived preliminary objection by the respondents and to allow the appeal. The counsel to the first to third respondents, Joseph Daudu, urged the court to grant the preliminary objections and dismiss the appeal. Other respondents also prayed the court to dismiss the appeal for lacking in merit and for being an academic exercise.
We believe in the rule of law. We believe that our complaints that courts have no business in meddling into political party affairs will be settled once and for all by the Court of Appeal in line with the position that had been taken by the Supreme Court and then maintained and repeated over and over again in several landmark decisions of that court. And at the end of the day, it is democracy that will be the better for it. But let me also add that Nigeria has grown so much and so well that nobody can force one-party system on us.
National Chair, sir, what are your firm expectations from today's proceeding?
My firm expectation from the way the matters have been argued in line with our argument, even in the lower courts, is that justice will be done.
What is important is that PDP must be together. Our job on this side, those of us who have been here, our interest is to rebuild our party, to make sure our party is united. It's not about grandstanding. If the judgment comes in our favor, we've won nobody. PDP has won. The PDP faithfuls have also won. So we believe, I ask God to make sure that this peace that is coming to PDP now will be sustained. Amen. And I pray that those of us who have been moving like pendulum swinging left and right should try and come back. Let us build our party together. I always preach peace, unity of the party. Nobody owns the party. It's a quality property of our members.
Justice Obiora Igwatu has recused himself from the 2 cases filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, against the former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami. Justice Igwatu, who was recently reassigned the cases by the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Justice John Soho, said he decided to withdraw from them for personal reasons and for better interest of justice. The 2 cases include a multi-billion naira asset forfeiture case concerning 57 properties and 8.7 billion naira money laundering charges filed by the EFCC against Mr. Malami, his wife Asabi Bashir, and son Abdulaziz. This development occurred shortly after the civil suit for forfeiture of the 57 properties allegedly linked to Mr. Malami was called for mention. At the resumed hearing, counsel to the EFCC, Ekele Ihanacho, a senior advocate of Nigeria, informed the court that the matter was scheduled for mention. He, however, told the court that the commission received a letter from Mr. Malami's counsel, Joseph Daudu, a senior advocate of Nigeria, seeking an adjournment of the case to Monday, February the 16th. According to him, Mr. Daudu stated in the letter that he was at the Court of Appeal for another case, hence the need for the application for an adjournment. Shortly after Mr. Ihanacho addressed the court, Justice Igwatu, in a brief ruling, announced his recusal from the case and that the case files would be remitted back to the Chief Judge accordingly. Members of the National Union of Food, Beverage and Tobacco Employees today staged a protest at the Lagos office of the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, accusing the agency of defying a federal government directive to suspend enforcement actions on alcoholic products packaged in sachets and PET bottles below 200 milliliters. The union is demanding the immediate unsealing of affected production lines, citing what it described as directives from the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and the Office of the National Security Advisor.
Since the enforcement of the ban on the production and sale of alcoholic drinks in sachet and PET bottles below 200 milliliters began, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, has faced growing resistance. At the agency's Isola office in Lagos, members of the National Union of Food, Beverage and Tobacco Employees staged another protest. The demonstration, which union leaders say is being held simultaneously in Lagos and Abuja, follows a press statement issued by NAFDAC. The agency's statement countered earlier online reports claiming the federal government had directed it to suspend enforcement on the ban.
What we are telling the DG of NAFDAC is that unseal our factories, unseal our warehouses, remove the ban on our product, and let us all sit down to work out a policy that will be beneficial to everybody.
As we speak right now, the machines are under seal, and just like my colleague have rightly said, they are being affected because those machines, because they are not run for some time now, is seriously affected.
Both the entrance and exit gates of the facility were initially blocked, prompting the intervention of law enforcement agencies.
If you are guaranteed that the workers will not enter through that place, but that anybody that is inside can come out through that place, we will work with you.
As the protest continues, NAFDAC staff could only access the exit gates to carry out administrative duties without disruptions. Meanwhile, findings indicate that the purported federal government directive circulating online, reportedly issued by the Special Advisor on Public Affairs in the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Terence Kaunam, lacked key official elements such as formal heading, date, location, and contact information. Despite the absence of an official memo to that effect, the union insists the directive is genuine.
The news that came out early in the morning yesterday came through almost all the dailies that we have. And of course, we do not have any doubt to trust the information that we have on the Nigerian national dailies. Currently, we have the leadership of our station already in Abuja, which I'm also sure they're also going to get a certified copy of this information. And once that is also gotten, then of course, it will be circulated through all the branches and then to all our factories for everybody to be sure that this information is directly entirely from the federal government.
And so the protest continues for hours. Protesters say they will not back down until NAFDAC complies with what they described as a federal government order to suspend the ban.
In part two, after the break, of course, we'll have more on the food and beverage and tobacco employees' protest with reactions from NAFDAC. Plus, Vice President Kashim Shettima arrives in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to represent President Bola Tinubu at the 39th AU Heads of State Assembly and 30th General Assembly, scheduled for February the 14th to the 15th. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you have just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo says Murtala Mohammed's greatest achievement is grooming a successor who sustained his ideals, warning Africa will struggle without leaders, building institutions and successors. Members of the National Union of Food, Beverage and Tobacco Employees protest at NAFDAC's Lagos office, claiming the agency ignored the federal directive, while NAFDAC insists the ban on small alcoholic products continues. Senate threatens to block 2026 Accountant General's budget over poor funding releases to MDAs and the persistent failure to pay contractors for projects already executed across the Federation. And U.S. President Donald Trump reverses a major Obama-era climate rule that forms the basis for federal efforts to limit greenhouse gas emissions. We have more on the protest by the Food, Beverage and Tobacco Employees Union, and this time NAFDAC in its reaction has maintained that the ban on alcohol sold in sachets and PET bottles of 200 milliliters or less remains in effect. In an earlier statement, the agency's Director General dismissed reports claiming that the federal government had ordered a suspension of the enforcement. NAFDAC described the reports as false and misleading, stressing that it has not received any official directive instructing the halt. And NAFDAC's position was reaffirmed by its Deputy Director and Head of Public Relations, Christiana Obiazikwo, while responding to the protest held at its premises.
No communication from anywhere, no memo from anywhere. So all you're seeing is not true. All the allegations they are saying and what news they are parading is not true. We are not abiding organization. And if there's any communication, we will abide to the law. We will comply. So there's nothing like that. There's no memo from anywhere asking us to stop to suspend the ban on the enforcement on the ban of alcohol. So we are not total. There's no total enforcement on alcohol. What we are dealing with is the ones in sachet that is so attractive to children and can be concealed. So that's what NAFDAC is trying to ensure that is out of circulation.
Jobs, markets, investments, and growing the local economy. These are the real solutions to addressing the challenge of internal displacements in the country. This was the consensus of stakeholders at the official opening of a two-day strategic dialogue convened by the federal government of Nigeria, the United Nations, the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, Tropical General Investment and other partners, which held in Lagos today. The keynote speaker, Vice President of Nigeria, Kashim Shettima, noted that the challenge of internal displacement requires coordinated thinking, collective action and sustained investment, even as he reiterated the federal government's commitment to providing the enabling environment for investment in fragile and displacement-affected regions. To the National Assembly, where the Senate has threatened to withhold approval of the 2026 budget proposal for the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation over poor release of funds to ministries, departments and agencies and the non-payment of contractors. The warning was issued by the Senate Committee on Finance during the budget defense session with the Accountant General of the Federation, Mr. Shamsuddin Ogunjimi. The committee, chaired by Senator Sani Musa, declined to consider the 2026 budget proposal, citing widespread complaints about inadequate releases in the 2025 budget and outstanding liabilities carried over from 2024. Our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Mizuki, tells us more.
Or the Ministry of Finance.
The Accountants General of the Federation appears before the Senate Committee on Finance in another round of budget defense sessions. From the outset, lawmakers expressed frustration over a series of complaints about inadequate fund releases to several government agencies under the 2025 budget, as well as outstanding liabilities.
All of them, what they presented clearly shows that there hasn't been any releases. Security agencies should be funded first line as a priority.
Other lawmakers questioned the state of the nation's finances, demanding full account for revenues generated.
How do we now account to Nigerians that the entire 2025, with all the revenue we generated, we have not spent a dime? Why is the money? How do you bring out all those books that this is why the entire money, the trillions that we generated, the borrowing that we borrowed in 2025, where did it go?
It is not about party. Don't assume members of this chamber are not unaware where these monies are channeled. We do. We have the records. We have evidences.
Sir, I must have the fund before I can disburse. I believe that what has caused the problem is not that the system was not working, but that there was no enough fund to process.
We have not agreed to take your budget, and we said we are not going to take your budget for 2026. And if we don't take your budget and you spend any money, you know you are spending it illegally.
Amidst a barrage of unanswered questions, the committee moves the conversation eventually behind closed doors. Elsewhere, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission appeared before a joint committee on electoral matters.
The envelope system, I have to say with respect, is not really helping us. We don't even have a network of our own. We're talking of a full-scale setting up of a network system now. Assuming we control the network, not dictated to us by primary, secondary providers, then INEC should be held responsible 100%.
Some proposals contained in the 171 billion naira 2026 budget for INEC was first a source of concern for some lawmakers.
I do not think with profound respect that INEC needs hospital. Do you have INEC special disease? I don't think so. Because this is an area we can avoid so that you focus on your core mandate.
The 873 billion naira budget for the 2027 elections and the appropriation for youth corps members is another highlight.
They are proposing 450,000 corps members, giving us about 32 billion naira.
Now, following deliberations, the Joint Committee adopted a motion recommending that INEC be placed on a first-line charge to enhance its financial autonomy. Meanwhile, the chairman announced that the Harmonization Committee would be meeting on Monday, February 16, to further consider the two versions of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Vice President Kashim Shettima has arrived in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to represent President Bola Tinubu at the 39th Ordinary Session of the African Union Heads of State and Government, as well as the 30th General Assembly, scheduled to hold on February the 14th and 15th. A statement by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Communications, Mr. Stanley Nkwacha, said the Vice President was received at the Bole International Airport by the Ethiopian and Nigerian government officials. This year's AU Summit, with the theme, Assuring Sustainable Water Availability and Safe Sanitation Systems to Achieve the Goals of Agenda 2063, will focus on advancing continental commitments towards sustainable water management, improved sanitation systems, and broader development aspirations in AU's Agenda 2063 framework. Besides the heads of state meetings, Vice President Shettima will participate in high-level side events and bilateral engagement with political and business leaders aimed at strengthening Nigeria's diplomatic, economic, and strategic partnerships across the continent. Now let's head to the nation's capital, and Millicent Walker is standing by to give us the latest from our Abuja studios. Over to you, Millicent.
Many thanks, Ayotunde. We begin in the health sector. The national coordinator of the sector-wide approach SWAP coordination office, Dr. Mutak Umar Sadiq, says the vision of the National Health Fellows program is to build the next generation of healthcare leaders in Nigeria. He made this known during his visit to the onboarding of the second cohort of the National Health Fellows in Abuja, where he represented the coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Pate. The program selects emerging professionals from all 774 local government areas of the country, cutting across health, information technology and social science disciplines, and is designed to strengthen leadership and capacity building within Nigeria's healthcare system.
Following this week of learnings, you will learn about not just the reforms, but the important skills around stakeholder management, around the underlying health systems, around problem solving, because ultimately we want to take the health sector from being this low-level equilibrium to one that you will be proud of for having played a role in advancing for the future. So I think this, for me, is a very important thesis. Over 155,000 people applied. You need to just think about what that means. So you really are the top of the top of the top. Your chances of getting into this program was probably more difficult than even getting into Harvard. I say that because you need to look inward and understand that you are carrying the torch for what is the best of what it means to be a Nigerian. And I think that's a very important thing. When we say the vision of the Health Fellowship is really around developing the next generation of healthcare leaders, we mean that. I think we see the future ministers of healthcare, the future innovators here. And we've been very deliberate about being agnostic to whether it's health or non-health, right? Because for us, this is about leadership. It's about management, right? It's about those underlying skill sets in terms of stakeholder engagement.
The FCT Minister, Nyesom Wike, has opened up about the delayed commencement of the bus terminals built and commissioned by his administration in 2025. The minister, during his routine inspection of the ongoing projects in the nation's capital, explained that the administration is awaiting approval from the Federal Executive Council, stating that operational responsibility is beyond the FCT administration. Mr. Wike also hinted that his administration is working on enhanced security to protect national assets such as streetlights within the capital.
The bus terminal. We're doing quite a lot, of course, by waiting for the Federal Executive Council to approve the running because the contract is beyond their ministerial approval, and so it requires the Federal Executive Council approval. I know that in the National Executive Council it will be presented, so it's not as easy as we thought after the travel down. But we said we're not going to allow transport and intent to run. It will be handled by private individuals who have the competence. So we believe in the next Federal Executive Council it will be approved. And once that is approved, then we hit the road. We contracted out the street light into CC, and the SIPs. And one of the features, there are going to have security features where you cannot try to manipulate to take it away or vandalize. I mean, how many policemen will you have on the road to go and check vandalization of street lights? So by the time they finish, we'll be able to see like a situation room where you are doing the election, like you're monitoring what's going on.
Still ahead on the news at 10, NNPC Limited remits 14.706 trillion naira to federal government for 2025 fiscal year, marking its highest annual contribution on record as it strengthens the nation's core financial revenue. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Watching the news at 10, coming to you live from Abuja studios. So some company news now. MTN Nigeria officially unveils Season 4 of MTN Champs, marking a strategic transition from talent discovery to full-scale athlete development as Nigeria sets its sight on the Los Angeles 2028 Olympic Games. The announcement was made during a high-profile principals conference and stakeholders address held at the MTN Event Center in Lagos. The milestone season signals what organizers describe as a long-term investment in Nigeria's sporting future.
It is a defining moment for Nigerian athletes as MTN Nigeria and Making of Champions gather stakeholders to launch MTN Champs Season 4. Originally launched in 2023, the initiative is successfully transitioning raw talent into the elite Making of Champions Academy, with 30 athletes now preparing for the international stage.
With MTN Champs, we're investing in the next generation of Nigerian athletes. We believe the country's future Olympic medalists are right here among our youth, waiting to be discovered, nurtured, and developed into global stars. Season 4 takes the vision even further, expanding participation, strengthening competition, and deepening our impact across schools and communities nationwide.
MTN's Chief Risk and Compliance Officer, Obiageli Oboma, describes the season as a pillar of youth empowerment, noting that today's investment secures tomorrow's victories. For Making of Champions, this multi-year renewal represents a historic shift in Nigerian sports.
Most importantly, it really reinforces our unwavering commitment to youth empowerment and national progress, using sports as a powerful vehicle. Season 4 is going to take place across 3 regions. Cities in these regions include Calabar, where we will have the MTN Champs Athletics Classics from the 5th to the 7th of March 2026. The second city is Jos, and the last, but by no means the least, city is Ibadan. Ibadan will play host to the MTN Champs Grand Finale and will run from the 15th to the 18th of April.
Never in the history of Nigeria since Mobile ended almost 15 years ago has there been a multi-year runway for athletes to prepare for the Olympics. So MTN coming on board for 3 years to make sure that athletes can plan from now until the Olympics, and not just to the Olympics.
A major highlight is the celebration of 20 academy athletes who secured 24 national and international medals in 2025 alone. To build on this success, the top 10 standouts from season 3 are being officially unveiled as the newest cohort, joining the MTN Athletes Academy for the 2026 training year.
Being here has been an experience for me. I've learned a lot, been through some stuff, and it feels good being here.
From school tracks to global podiums, MTN Champs is evolving into a national platform, building discipline, opportunity, and competitiveness for Nigeria's next generation.
So much is given, much is expected.
To all the stories, the Controller General of Customs, Adewale Adeniyi, says that establishing the Green Channel would make Nigerian ports more competitive and reduce the cost of doing business. CGC Adeniyi stated this as he inaugurated the project in Ibejuleki, Lagos, adding that the scheme will enhance importation and clearance of goods at the free zone.
The Controller General of Customs, Adewale Adeniyi, arrives at the Lekki Deep Sea Port and he is received by officers and men of the Customs Service of the Lagos Free Trade Zone Command, as well as management of the port.
We are here to share in the momentum of the new system, and I hope that we all make it work eventually.
After the formalities, he moves straight to commission the Green Channel at the port complex.
I'm therefore delighted to commission this for operational efficiency and trade facilitation.
According to the Customs and Management of Lagos Freeze Zone, the Green Channel, alongside other initiatives such as the Economic Operator Programs, Fast Track, and Remote Clearance, as part of a broader strategy to accelerate cargo movement and improve efficiency in the supply chain.
This is a game changer. It reduces your costs,
it makes you more efficient, and all around this is what we really wanted to do as Lagos Free Zone, to ensure that enterprises who come to us have ease of doing business, because we take away all the hassles for you and we provide a space where you can focus on your business, concentrate on your profitability, and truly rise to world-class standard.
The coming of the Green Channel, which is well acknowledged by all stakeholders, will sustain successes recorded within the free zone and create more jobs.
We have been able to create more than 10,000 jobs. So the contribution to the economy and the impact is already happening. And this is with only 10% or the 15% of the zone being occupied. You can imagine if the zone, the Lagos Free Zone, the one zone, if it's occupied at 100%, the kind of impact it will have on the economy would be magnifold.
On his part, the Controller General of Customs, Adewale Adeni, who noted that Lagos Command contributes over 70% of monthly revenue, expressed optimism about what the country stands to benefit in the Green Channel project.
We are looking at creating an economy that is more competitive. In the short run, we expect that it will help us to reduce the cost of doing business, the time of doing business, which will translate into higher revenue for Nigeria Customs Service.
Stakeholders say the inauguration of the Green Channel will guarantee seamless operation within the port and the Lagos Free Zone through an intelligent-led, technology-driven service provision by the Lagos Free Trade Zone Command of the Nigeria Customs Service, all geared towards increasing investment and contribute to the economic advancement of Nigeria.
And that's it from the nation's capital. Over now to Ayotunde for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you so much, Millicent. And before we head to business news, River State Governor Siminalayi Fubara has dissolved the State Executive Council. The decision was announced in a statement signed by the Chief Press Secretary to the Governor, Onwuka Nzechi. Now, the Governor, in the statement, directed all commissioners and special advisors to hand over to the permanent secretaries or the most senior officers in their respective ministries with immediate effect. Governor Fubara expressed appreciation to the outgoing members of the Executive Council for their service to the state and wished them well in their future endeavors. The dissolution comes after the recent reconciliation between Governor Fubara and his predecessor, Nyesom Wike, which effectively eased months of political tension in the state. The development is expected to pave the way for the reconstitution of the cabinet as the governor charts a new phase for his administration following the truce between the two political leaders. Now let's head to business news with Dominic Iwiwo.
Thank you, Ayo. And on business news, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has contributed a record 14.706 trillion naira to statutory remittances to the federal government for the full calendar year of 2025. According to the company's monthly report summary for December 2025, the sum represents statutory payments including taxes, royalties, and other mandated contributions paid into federal coffers between January and December 2025. In addition to the high remittance figure, NNPC Limited reported strong financial results, generating 60.5 trillion naira in total revenue and posting a profit after tax of 5.76 trillion naira for the year. Still in the oil sector, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has announced a temporary shortfall in gas supply to several power generation companies beginning today through February 15, 2026, due to scheduled maintenance on key gas production facilities. In a statement issued today, NNPC Limited said its joint venture partner, Seplat Energy PLC, a major supplier of natural gas into the NNPC Gas Infrastructure Company Limited pipeline network, will carry out routine maintenance on its gas production plants over the 4-day period. The exercise is part of standard safety and asset integrity protocols aimed at ensuring long-term reliability and efficiency of critical gas infrastructure. According to the company, the maintenance will temporarily reduce gas volumes flowing into the NGIC pipeline network, potentially affecting some gas-fired power plants that depend on these supplies for operations. Billionaire investor Femi Otedola has expressed strong optimism that the Nigerian naira could strengthen to trade below 1,000 naira to the US dollar before the end of 2026 as the Dangote Petroleum Refinery reaches and consolidates its full production capacity. In a post on his X, formerly Twitter account, Mr. Otedola described the refinery's attainment of its 650,000 barrels per day capacity as a transformational milestone for Nigeria's economy and foreign exchange outlook. He adds that the refinery's ability to supply up to 75 million litres of premium motor spirits PMS daily could drastically reduce Nigeria's long-standing dependence on imported refined fuel, a major drain on foreign exchange reserves. And domestic equities market stays in positive territory on the fourth consecutive trading day. Willie Bong tells us more.
Welcome to the stock market report. In a surprising twist today, the all-share index swung back to positive territory at the close of the bell from a negative performance at intraday. And this is contrary to expectations from the analysts I had a chat with earlier today. Now, Seplat had a huge role to play in the reversal of today's trends. As the stock price, we're seeing it adding about 737 naira to its share price to close above 8,100 naira. Massive jump for Seplat and a win for investors there. Now, still on the gainers chart, we see Deep Cap, topping the list. Investors are still bullish, positively reacting to the companies receiving fresh capital from Backlink Africa, and that's a milestone investment. And we saw that knee-jerk reaction from investors, 10% up today. And then also from the aviation sector, however, we see NACO, the aviation handling company, dipping today on the front burner, burning badly, profit taking setting in for that stock, especially most of stocks are also experiencing that. Not a bad run for the penultimate session of the week. Let's see if the bull can hold his title tomorrow. And those are the highlights. Will Ibang signing out.
And that's it on business news. Back to Ayotunde for the rest of the news at 10.
U.S. President Donald Trump has reversed a key Obama-era scientific ruling that supported federal actions on curbing planet-warming gases. The White House describes the reversal as the largest deregulation in American history, claiming it will make cars cheaper and even bring down costs for automakers by $2,400 per vehicle. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news and around the world in 5 from our London studio.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. An 18-year-old has been named as the suspect in a shooting that killed 8 people and injured dozens more in British Columbia in Canada. Police say Jesse Van Rootselaar was found dead at the scene from a self-inflicted gunshot injury. The motive for the attack is not yet known. 6 people were killed and at least 25 others injured at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. 2 others, the suspect's mother, 39, and stepbrother, 11, were found dead at a nearby home. Authorities said Van Rootselaar was born a biological male but identified as a woman. The shooting at the nearby home occurred first, before the suspect went to the school. The victims at the school were a 39-year-old female educator, 3 female students, all aged 12, and 2 male students, one aged 12 and one aged 13.
Determining the origin of these firearms and what role they played in the shootings remains a significant part of the active and ongoing investigation. We identified the suspect as they chose to be identified in public and in social media. I can say that Jesse was born as a biological male who approximately, the information that I have, approximately 6 years ago began to transition to female and identified as female both socially and publicly.
Votes are being counted in Bangladesh after its first election since student-led protests ousted the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in 2024. More than 2,000 candidates are vying for 350 seats in Parliament, though none from the banned Awami League of Hasina, who fled after 15 years in power after a brutal security crackdown in which hundreds of protesters were killed. Results are expected on Friday, and there's widespread hope among voters of a return to democracy. At least 31 people have died after a powerful cyclone struck Madagascar. Cyclone Gazani made landfall on Tuesday, hitting the island's main port. Madagascar's Disaster Management Office said there was total chaos, reporting that houses collapsed in the impact zone where bodies were found. Neighborhoods were plunged into darkness as power lines snapped, while trees were uprooted and roofs ripped off. The cyclone's landfall is likely to have been one of the most intense recorded around the city in the satellite area, according to the CMRS cyclone forecaster on France's Reunion Island. Chinese President Xi Jinping has made a rare public reference to a recent crackdown which saw the country's top military general removed. General Zhang Yuxia, who was widely seen as Xi's closest military ally, was removed from his post in January. He was accused of serious violations of discipline and law, typically a euphemism for corruption. Speaking in a virtual address, Xi said the past year had been unusual and extraordinary, adding that the army had undergone revolutionary tempering in the fight against corruption. Since coming to power, President Xi has launched waves of anti-corruption drives, which critics say have also been used as a tool to purge political rivals. Russia has attempted to fully block WhatsApp in the country, the company said, as the Kremlin continues to tighten restrictions on messaging apps. Meta-owned WhatsApp said the move aims to push more than 100 million of its app users in Russia to a state-owned surveillance app. This comes after Russian regulators faced further curbed access to Telegram, citing a lack of security. Telegram is estimated to have as many users as WhatsApp in Russia. Russia's communications regulator has made repeated warnings to WhatsApp to comply with local law. State-owned TASS Media reported earlier this year that WhatsApp is expected to be permanently blocked in the country in 2026. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has selected his daughter as his heir, South Korea's spy agency told lawmakers on Thursday. Little is known about Kim Joo-ae, who in recent months has been pictured beside her father in high-profile events like a visit to Beijing in September, her first known trip abroad. The National Intelligence Agency said it took a range of circumstances into account, including her increasingly prominent presence at official events, in making this assessment. The news comes as North Korea is set to hold a party congress later this month, its largest political event that is held once every 5 years. And after setting off from Texas more than 15 weeks ago, a band of Buddhist monks have completed their 2,000-mile walk for peace in Washington, D.C. Often walking barefoot and through rain, snow and severe weather to bring awareness of peace, loving-kindness and compassion across America, the monks' journey captured the public imagination, with hundreds turning out to see them take their final steps. Their journey home is a little easier. The monks are getting a bus back to Texas, with only a short walk back to their monastery after arriving.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Now let's find out what's happening in the world of sports. And Chris Lems is here to give us the latest. Chris.
Thank you, Ayo. Welcome to Sports News. 4 days after securing promotion, Nigeria has been drawn to face Morocco in the Davis Cup Group 2 with the fixture set for September the 18th to the 20th, 2026. Nigeria advanced to the World Group 2 on Sunday after an impressive victory over Uzbekistan 3-1 in Group 2 playoff, continuing their steady rise in the global team tennis rankings. Nigeria has never recorded a victory over Morocco, who is ranked 48th in the world in the Davis Cup, with their first meeting dating back to 1973. UEFA President Alexander Seferin says European football's governing body is not currently contemplating bringing Russia back into the international fold after FIFA chief Gianni Infantino recently indicated he backed easing a ban on the country. Russia was expelled from all club and international competitions by UEFA in 2022 following the country's invasion of Ukraine.
I don't think that if anybody says his or her opinion, he or she should be insulted from anybody. UEFA's position is clear, it didn't change, but we're looking into everything every day. And the world is changing so fast that it's even hard to follow. So let's see what the future brings. I can comment what UEFA is doing, and I cannot comment what FIFA is doing, or any governments who speak out loud.
And Brentford fought back to hold Arsenal to a 1-1 draw at the GTEC Community Stadium, and the Gunners led at the top, or rather, the Gunners' lead at the top is now 4 points. Nani Madueke gave the visitors the lead in the 61st minute. King Louis Porter got the equalizer 10 minutes later. The result means Arsenal are now on 57 points from 26 games that are closely trailed by Man City on 53 points. Then Nottingham Forest are close to appointing former Wolves boss Victor Pereira as their new head coach. The Premier League club sacked Sean Dyche earlier today, shortly after being held to a goalless draw by bottom club Wolves on Wednesday, leaving them 3 points above the relegation zone with 12 games remaining. The 57-year-old quickly emerged as the preferred option to replace Dyche, having worked previously under Forest owner Evangelos Marinakis at Greek club Olympiacos. And Sweden's Frida Karlsson and Eva Andersen secured a gold-silver sweep in the women's 10-kilometer freestyle cross-country ski race at the Winter Games earlier today. Karlsson claimed the second gold of the Games with a time of 22 minutes, 49.2 seconds, finishing over 46. That's Sports News. Is back to you, Ayo.
Thank you, Chris, and the main news again. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo has said that General Murtala Mohammed's greatest achievement is grooming a successor who will sustain his ideals, warning Africa will struggle without leaders, building institutions and successors. Members of the National Union of Food, Beverage and Tobacco Employees have protested at NAFDAC's Lagos office, claiming the agency ignored a federal directive, while NAFDAC insists the ban on small alcoholic products continues. Senate has threatened to block the 2026 Accountant General budget over poor funding releases to MDAs and the persistent failure to pay contractors for projects already executed across the Federation. And United States President Donald Trump has reversed a major Obama-era climate rule that forms the basis for federal efforts to limit greenhouse gas emissions. And that's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. From everyone here, to have a good night.